Well, thank you, Kim, so much for that very, very gracious introduction. Since you brought the movie up, you can find it in moneywetrust.org. Write it down in moneywetrust.org. And Kim is very, very gracious. She said, I wasn't paid to come here. Seeing you, Kim, is pay enough. Thank you. Give her a round. She made this all possible. And as for Steve Moore, if I'd been president, my energy policy would have been, put this guy out there, tap into the energy, and everything is done. No, all solved, all solved. Boy, what a hard act to follow, that one. But anyway, we'll try. But, by the way, Representative Ocasio-Cortez released today her new Green Deal plan. And, you know, I was pinching myself, is this a rehearsal for Saturday Night Live? One of her proposals is she wants to do away with airplane travel. Now, how do you get across the ocean? She thinks if you put barges or something, you can have high-speed trains across the ocean. I mean, even Jesus could only walk across the ocean. She doesn't like cows because of you-know-what. Although I think for the Democrat Party, it should be no longer a donkey. That's bad enough. I think they should have a bull and something else, because it is so bad. And so she wants to do away with nuclear power plants, even though it's clean energy. And she wants to have every building in America, every single one, retrofitted with her version of energy efficiency. If not, tear it down. And when asked, what is this going to cost? She says, well, we'll do project by project. Okay, you want to buy a bigger house? We'll do project by project. What are budgets for? Just say it, make it happen. Like a kid, it's wonderful. So I got my Saturday Night Live early this week. But this is the kind of thing that is holding down the market. Not the current policies, although I'll chat on trade in just a moment, but it's the fear of what might happen in 2020. Markets always look to the future. What if the impossible happens, the inconceivable happens, and they take over in 2020? They are counting on Donald Trump imploding, and they can take the whole thing, like Johnson did back in 1965 before any of you were born. Pander. Tried it in politics, didn't work, which is why I'm here today. But they're counting on sweeping the tables, taking it all, and enacting a socialist program. They won't call it that, but that's what it is. And so what's holding us down is fear for the future, trade, fears of the Fed, disarray in politics. So let's just go through these. Oh, by the way, I have to make mention of, Steve Moore mentioned it, State of the Union address, delicious highlights. Trump realized he's in trouble, and so he's going to hit, and is hitting hard, on their two vulnerabilities. One is socialism. Call it for what it is. The other is an issue, I don't care whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, is what they euphemistically call late-term abortion, which is simply infanticide. Now, the governor of Virginia, before he had his other problems, no, I'm going to stop with that, but they proposed a bill in the legislature, pushing a bill. New York State just passed one very close to it. The baby can be born. If you don't think it's going to be good, kill it. He was open about it. And so Trump was going to drive them on that. Infanticide and socialism. And that's how he won that State of the Union address. And then he did something for a guy who's supposedly anti-intellectual, ignorant, whatever name you want to call for it. He gave a nice history lesson. World War II, the Holocaust, landing a man on the moon, and did so in a very dramatic way that really hit home on young people. Probably went online. What was this all about, since they don't teach history anymore, except their version that everything we did was wrong. And it was quite an accomplishment. But my favorite moment was when, by a nice twist, rhetorical twist, he had the Democratic members of Congress. Jobs, women, are they going to sit on their hands on that? So you had this delicious sight. They're dressed in white. That's supposed to evoke the suffragettes of the 19-teens and 20s. But sadly, they look like they're members of a cult. Think of it. If you saw them at an airport, you say, okay, they're going to hit me up for something. Go the opposite direction. Banging their drums or whatever. And so it looked like they were applauding their Messiah, their cult leader. And then the way he commanded them effortlessly, keep standing up. And they immediately keep standing up. He says there are more female members, women members of Congress. They applauded again. And then they started chanting, USA. I mean, if you had said that Donald Trump could get these far left members of Congress chanting USA, USA, you'd said no way. But he didn't. And he's such a magician, hypnotic figure, they didn't even know it was happening. Think about it. It was extraordinary. But as we saw today, not just the silliness of Ocasio-Cortez, the Democrats are now going to try to kill this presidency, not through an impeachment, but through 1,000 cuts. Investigations are being announced. They're going to go after his tax returns. They're going to try to destroy his businesses. They're going to try to destroy his family, especially his oldest son. Anything and everything they're going to use to try to bring him down, tie him down. And so the extraordinary lurch to the left of the Democrats is only happening because they think they can get handed the election in 2020 and have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to realize their nightmarish fantasies. So, 70% tax rate, wealth tax, Medicare for all, bashing the banking system, turning back deregulation. So the real key is what to watch out for, especially for your portfolios, is how effective will be the GOP response to this. If the clouds are dissipated, the market will roar ahead. If we got a good trade agreement with China, 5,000 points, easy. So let's start with trade, and then we'll get to the craziness of the tax thing. But on trade, the thing to remember about trade is a tariff is a sales tax. So when they talk about a 25% tariff on autos, that's a 25% sales tax on parts too. Now, it is true that if we have massive increase in sales taxes on March 1st, China will be hurt. They will be hurt more than us, but we will be hurt too. So they're hurt, we're hurt. I mean, this each hurting each other, simultaneous hurt, leave that for 50 Shades of Gray. You know, if you want to hurt each other, leave it for that. What we should be doing, and I hope after when we get a deal with China, which I think we will get, by the way, Larry Kudlow saying, oh, we're far away from a deal. Then there's the announcement, Trump's not going to talk to Xi before March 1st. That, I think, is negotiating pressure, putting the pressure on to get a deal. So one way or the other, in the next few months, there will be a deal. But the thing is, I think, and they're finally glomming onto it now, The way you deal with trade abuses and the abuses that Beijing has been engaging in, forced mergers, forced transfers of technology, absolute stealing of technology, hacking and the like. And by the way, I have to share one little story. Several years ago, the head of a large company, when the hackers come, you can sort of see it coming into your system often. And so during the day, they'd see these attempts to break in, but they noticed that at a certain time of day, the attacks stopped for about an hour. They finally figured out why. The government hackers were taking their lunch break. True story, true story. But the way you deal with that is you go after the specific abusers. If Huawei, which it is engaging in bad behavior, you call them out and you take them to court. You go after their executives. We could unite with our European friends and Canadians. They suffer from the same kinds of abuses. Several months ago, ZTE, major company, if we had barred them from getting certain critical components from Qualcomm and others, they would have gone down. They would have been destroyed. The president gave them a reprieve, got no thanks from Beijing for it. But if you knock down a company like that, you go after specific companies, specific individuals, specific industries, whether criminally, WTO and the like, Beijing will respond, and we don't have to put sales taxes on that hurt us as well as them. I think the Justice Department is now doing that, and one way or the other, we're going to deal with the problem. But hopefully, we'll get this tariff thing out of the way. Now, as Steve indicated, the economy is doing well. Unemployment's down. Imagine, for the first time, we have more job openings than we do unemployed. Imagine that. So, Trump would say, that's huge. Absolutely true. So, on trade, what kind of likely deal are we going to get with Beijing? I think you're going to see a number 1 trillion. Sounds good. What's going to involve is over the next 8 to 10 years, China will pledge to buy several $100 billion worth of natural gas. They need natural gas. They get it now from Russia and from the Middle East. They'd like a third supplier. The more suppliers you have, the better. You're going to see buying of oil, buying more agricultural products, more manufacturing products, and they'll allow us to get a greater share of certain parts of their market. As Steve said, not 100%, but we're going to start to finally move in the right direction. Will Congress pass it? They will pass a China deal. Why? Because the agreement to buy energy states, farm states, where Democrats made gains in the agricultural sectors of this economy, the elections last November, everyone's going to get something from it. So even Democrats are going to have a hard time explaining to their constituents, oh, you lost that factory order because I didn't like Donald Trump. Is not going to be a winning formula for 2020. So I think they'll get that through. Another big question, though, is will they get NAFTA 2, NAFTA Junior, whatever you want to call it, the U.S. Mexican-Canadian agreement, which was previously entitled the most wonderful North American trade agreement negotiated by Donald Trump involving the following countries. Now, they shortened it to U.S., Mexico, Canada. But they made that deal. It's overall not bad. Some parts of it I wish they'd have taken out, anti-trade. But the thing is, they actually made a good faith effort to negotiate with the Democrats, to bring them on board, putting in certain protections that the Democrats said they wanted. And what did they get for it? Oh, Sherrod Brown, left-wing senator from Ohio. They quietly behind the scenes said, what will make this palatable for you? And then what did they do? They said, oh, this is a good deal, but Donald Trump is near it. Boo, hiss. And they backed off. So I think they'll do some side deals, in effect to peel off some Democrats. I think they'll get the thing through. But the uncertainty in the meantime means we're going to get less growth than we would otherwise. But if we get that China deal, get junior NAFTA through, by golly, a good thing. Now, before hitting our friends at the Fed, let's hit deregulation. Regulation, as you know, is a form of taxation. And what is going on, Steve made reference to it, what's going on at the FDA, Food and Drug Administration. They're wisely staying out of the headlines, but drug approvals with high-quality standards, twice what they were. I mean, why should a generic take 4 years to get through the FDA bureaucracy? The testing has already been done, for crying out loud. So they're knocking that down to a few months, a year. The FCC, Federal Communications Commission, removing barriers to the internet. Imagine, the internet is no longer confined by regulations written in the early 1930s for dial-up phones. You know, most of you, what a dial-up is, but you show it to your grandkids, they haven't a clue how you make the punch the thing. They try to make like it was a computer screen. Doesn't work. They finally got rid of that. And they call it net neutrality. They come with these crazy names. And the advocates of net neutrality, Barack Obama said, oh my goodness, this is going to be the worst thing in the world, the end of the world. Everyone's going to be charged $10,000 a month for access. Has the end of the world come yet? No, not from that. Maybe from the cows, but not from that. And so good things are beginning to happen. Labor Department, no publicity. But they're now putting in regulations, for example, that are going to be allowing small businesses to unite to buy health insurance. They have one part of the country, I think it's Arkansas, where they're doing it already. You know, the crazy thing about health insurance in this country is they do it company by company. Instead of having regional pools or big pools, you have 20 people, that's what they base the rates on, which is crazy. So if you have one sick person, kablooey, your premiums go through the roof. So now they're allowing these small businesses to unite. What happened to premiums? They went down 75%. Instead of doing little company by little company, unite them together, by golly, big things happen. Gets no publicity. Education, imagine, if you're accused of doing something wrong in college now, you're going to get something called due process. You're innocent until found guilty. I mean, what a breakthrough in criminal law. Amazing, amazing. So, let's get now to taxing. 70%. How will the Republicans respond? They're going to have to make the case. Taxes are a price and a burden. You want more success, risk-taking, higher salaries, you reduce the burden. Take that 70%. If you want to soak the rich on taxes, you lower the rates. Sounds counterintuitive, but in 1980, Steve knows this, the top 1% of income earners, when we had a 70% tax rate, they paid 18%, 18 out of $100 in federal income tax. Today, the rate is about half that, 37%. They collect $40 out of 100 from the top 1%. You raise the rate to 70%, nobody pays it, unless they're, came into like a boxing match, you win a big amount of money and you haven't put the tax shelters in. But it's going to have money in the tax-exempt bonds, tax shelters, money leaving the country, capital leaving the country. You have a poor economy. How is a poor economy helping the people you're supposedly championing? Don't ask Miss Cow about that, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez. She'll just say, oh, we'll make great jobs. Pass a law, great jobs. But they have to fight the thing, pointing out you're going to destroy the very thing you want. Wealth tax and 70% tax rate. Who would you rather have managing your money? Put aside politics. You'd rather have Warren Buffett or Ocasio-Cortez managing your money? Would you rather have Jeff Bezos, entrepreneur out there, or Chuck Schumer managing your money? Chuck Schumer's not Chuck Schwab. Think of it. And so, And so you fight fire with fire. Just don't say these are going to be harmful. Go on, point out the flaws. Point out the flaws. France had a wealth tax. Point out the flaws, because they say with the wealth tax, first, France, it didn't work. That's why they repeal it. If the French repeal a tax, you know it is very, very bad. Think of that. But how do you enforce a wealth tax? Everyone is going to be examined by tens of thousands of new IRS agents, totaling up all your assets. It's not just the worth of your house or your land. Where's your jewelry? Where's this? Where's that? They can do it to everybody. It's an excuse to intrude, even if you're making minimum wage. Do you have money hidden somewhere? So they do a close examination. There goes liberty. That's how you fight it. And then you go on offense. Put something out there that people might like a flat tax. Take this 10 million code and throw it out, 10 million word code and throw it out. Simple, single rate. Your first $52,800 family of four, free of federal income tax, 17 cents on the dollar above that, no tax on your savings, no death tax. Imagine leaving the world unmolested by the IRS. Fill it out on a postcard or a few keystrokes on a computer. Say, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, do you understand the current tax code? Even you, Ms. Representative, could understand a single postcard. You could get that. Fight fire with fire. And by the way, if you want Medicare for all, sounds nice. So you don't talk about it's unaffordable. That sounds like you're an accountant who wants to make you suffer because you can't afford to get the right care. That's how it comes across politically. What you do instead is say Medicare for all means health care, less health care for everyone. How do they control health care costs in other countries? They ration it. You need kidney dialysis in England, you're above the age of 60, you'll never get in front of the line. They just let you die. Rationing. Is that what we want in this country? We want bureaucrats like Ms. Ocasio-Cortez determining who lives and who doesn't? I mean, it's bad enough for the cows, but I can't imagine what's going to be for human beings. So you fight fire with fire. And in terms of health care, we should be advocating patient control. Liberalize health savings accounts. A new Part G for Medicare. Now you say Part G doesn't end at E or something? Well, be like Donald Trump. Don't get constrained by the alphabet. Go down to G, G for great. And offer health, completely voluntary health savings accounts for people on Medicare. A couple would get probably $18,000 a year for routine medical expenses, and almost 100% coverage above that for catastrophic events. Don't you think that would be nice? And if you don't use the money, it's yours, stays in your account, your property. That would take care of the over-testing they do to people on Medicare. Gross over-testing. Suddenly it's your money, you're going to ask, what am I getting for this? What are you doing to me? That's how you control expenses, and also doesn't mean just controlling expenses, it means the glories of free markets. Free markets always turn scarcity into abundance. Was Henry Ford turning a toy for the rich, which cost $125,000 100 years ago to buy a new car, to something every working person could afford? Genius of American technology, and entrepreneurs turning the original cell phone, cost $3,995, weighed like a brick, 40-minute battery life, to even today, high charging price Apple is only $1,000 compared to $3,995, and they do everything now, not just voice. The only thing they don't do now is grow hair. Maybe the next version will. That's what you want. That's what you want. You want the genius of free enterprise, like surgery for the eyes, LASIK surgery, so you might not have to wear these things because it's not covered by insurance now. Guess what's happened to the costs? 15 years ago, each eye would have cost you an average of $2,200. Today it's $1,350 in nominal dollars and a better result. So instead of restricting the people, truly, these leftists should learn to free the people. And when the people are free, all of us, even cow-hating Ocasio-Cortez, will be better off. Thank you very much.
Isn't he amazing? Big round of applause. Big. All that he does for all of us. God bless him. Now, I have a treat. He is going to answer a few questions. So it's going to be limited because he's got to get on the plane and do more of his great work. But go ahead, sir.
Steve, what about the deficit? Even my own children who are apolitical keep asking me, how are we ever going to pay it off? I'm worried about how we're going to reduce it.
Well, the way you deal with the deficit is not by raising taxes and silly things like that. The way you do it is the way the countries have done it, wise ones in the past, and that is you grow the economy. Steve Moore is right. Over time, compounding, the miracle of compounding growth, reduces liabilities. I mean, think of it this way. You have assets and you have liabilities. Politicians in Washington have a hard time grasping that. If your asset side is growing, the liabilities become less burdensome. So growth means more revenue, growth and a little bit of spending restraint, positive reform on entitlements, and by golly, what happens over time is the debt as a burden is reduced. Take the U.S. After World War II, fighting to save civilization, the debt was about 122% of GDP. We were on the gold standard after the war. Actually reduced some taxes after the war. By 1970, debt as a portion of GDP had gone from 122% to 35%. Went off the gold standard, went kablooey on taxes, and we're now 80+% today, ready to go to over 100. And in terms of reform, there are two ways to deal with entitlements. One is root canal without anesthesia. For example, Social Security, raise the retirement age to 85. That solves that one. Medicare, shoot any of us over the age of 75. Done. Done. But there's a more positive way. On the healthcare side, as I illustrated with LASIK surgery, you get more patient control, which is starting to happen now. And guess what? Those liabilities come crashing down because you start to get the miracle of the free markets, and we start to get more for less. More for less. It seems inconceivable in healthcare, but that's what happens. I'll give you one example. Surgery Center of Oklahoma, started by a couple of anesthesiologists a few years ago. They did something different, even though they had board-certified surgeons and everything. No insurance. You go there, you pay cash, credit card, but they list the prices online. You ever seen a hospital list prices online for everything in advance? Do you have a guarantee, like they do at the surgery center? If they go above the price they quote you, they eat the cost, not you. And because they keep overhead low, since they don't have government or insurers paying for it, guess what happens? Their prices are so low that even the state of Oklahoma sometimes sends state workers there for certain surgeries, because even though they don't get reimbursed, they still end up saving money. Take, for example, certain kinds of hernia operations. Thankfully, most of them are routine, but sometimes they get very complicated. The complicated kind typically would cost at the hospital in that part of the world $17,000. Surgery center, $3,975. Imagine that. You do more of that, and we get the miracle in healthcare. People say, well, does that mean we're going to have to do without? No, you get more. It's like food. Government doesn't run agriculture. It's still too much involved in agriculture, but government doesn't run agriculture. If it did, we'd have no more obesity. We'd all be starving. And so farmers grow the food, companies may process the food, trucks deliver the food, grocery stores, hotels, everyone sells the food, and if people have a problem getting food, you have everything from food banks to food stamps to deal with it. Why can't we do the same thing? Healthcare. Have effective safety nets, which can be done, but also we're getting more for less, getting those breakthroughs. And by golly, one of the disastrous things would happen if they have government control of healthcare is innovation and breakthroughs virtually cease to exist. Europe used to be a great font of new medicines. Single-payer systems came in, became more dominant. They still come up with some, especially Switzerland, which has a different kind of system. But the US is where most of the breakthroughs are coming, not Europe anymore. So at my age, I know I look young, ha ha ha, I kind of like breakthroughs. There's some very, very promising things out there. Take the one we all dread, dementia. Some breakthroughs are coming there. You know, for years they thought if they deal with the tangles in the brain that come from dementia, Alzheimer's and the like, and tangles, they thought they deal with that, that would cure the thing. They're now finding out that those are the results of the disease, not the cause. And if you find different ways to stimulate the brain, you can halt it the way you do diabetes. That is the next. How do you deal with the debt? You grow the economy, spending restraint, sound dollar, low tax rates, simple tax rate, and I just have to get this in on the flat tax. That is a moral issue, not just an economic one. It's a moral one. IRS estimates we spend 6 billion hours a year filling out tax forms. Experts estimate we spend $200 to $300 billion a year complying with this monstrosity. Go back 20 years. Imagine if all those literally tens of billions of hours, literally trillions of dollars, had been applied to creating new products, new services, new medical devices, new cures for diseases. How much better all of us would have been instead of all that brain power, all those resources on this idiot tax code. So, growth, not root canal without anesthesia. Thank you.